Here we go. Here we go.
Oh,
there is young
God.
Mr. Yates.
Yeah.
There he is. This
There
is
you go.
Super Bowl 42 is about to end. The Giants preventing your beloved Patriots from going 19-0. It is a pleasure to be joined this week on The Biggest Game by one of the ultimate NFL insiders, savants, thinkers, the great Field Yates. Field, thank you so much for joining us.
Jeremy, it's great to be on with you. Really looking forward to this.
Now, Field, we're gonna go way back.
Okay.
But one of the things, perhaps not everyone who follows you, and there are so many who do follow you, knows about you, is that you played both football and lacrosse at Wesleyan University in Middletown, Connecticut.
Yes.
The Cardinals.
Yeah.
And somehow that rings a bell. You know, there's some bona fides there that you share with someone who is prominent in the history of the Super Bowl. Can you tell us about that connection?
Yeah, for those that are saying to themselves, oh, that's the school that they refer to when they talk about Harvard. That's the Wesleyan of Boston, right? Yes,
Right.
That's exactly the school that we are referring to. Actually, Cornell is the the Wesleyan of Central or upstate New York.
Both.
Yeah, whatever it might be. But yes, Wesleyan's where I went, and I was class of 2009, which put me just 34 years behind a certain head coach who has gone on to win 8 separate Super Bowls, 6 as a head coach. That being Bill Belichick. There was a time in which Wesleyan was, I believe, one of 2 schools that had 2 active NFL head coaches, as Eric Mangini, former Browns and Jets head coach, class of 1994. And I believe, still to this day, the school's all-time sack leader. He was a nose guard.
Right.
Belichick was a center, I think he played some defensive line as well. But I've noticed that when Wesleyan promotes its notable alumni, Belichick always makes the cut. Mangini makes some list. I have yet to make such a list, Jeremy. So
I find that very hard to believe.
No, it's okay.
You are top Cardinal for me. I mean, by far. I did a story up there once.
Yeah.
This is a digression, but I did a story. It might have been right around your era about a famous figure from the world of sports who was playing baseball at the time at Wesleyan University. And I believe he led the NESCAC, the New England Small College Athletic Conference, in hitting, right?
Yes.
I mean, we're talking about
Jeffrey
Meyer.
Meyer.
What are we talking about?
Jeffrey Meyer, who was a senior. Mayer, excuse me, Jeffrey Meyer. I would get in trouble if I didn't.
You're not
have
a
that
Yankees
part correct.
guy, so
yes, I'm from Boston, so I'm very much not. I had to go over there and rattle his cage a couple times when I first met him on campus. He was a senior when I was a freshman.
Oh, okay.
And you're right. He went on to an illustrious baseball career at Wesleyan, and I actually don't know what he's doing now, but
he was working for the Yankees, which makes perfect sense. The fix was in for a long time.
I believe the contract was probably signed the day that he bent over the wall to make that a home run.
Yeah. What was that? That was Tony Tarasco. It was a Derek Jeter ball, but it was Tony Tarasco.
Right.
I think of the Orioles.
That's
right. What I think. I'm sorry. I'm putting you on the spot on baseball. It's not fair. You've got lacrosse. You got football.
Yeah.
I shouldn't expect you to have the baseball thing too. So, we're here ostensibly to be talking about the Super Bowl. Your first Super Bowl, the first that you attended.
Yeah.
And if people want to do the math, it's not going to work out.
Yeah, that's correct.
Was in 1987, Super Bowl 21 at the Rose Bowl. The New York Giants' first appearance, first victory in the Super Bowl, 39-20 over the Denver Broncos. Phil Simms, 22 out of 25. How did you come to be at that game when you had not yet been born?
That's correct, yes. My parents somehow managed to sneak 3 people in for the price of 2, which back then a Super Bowl ticket might have been slightly affordable, certainly more affordable than it is today when people mortgage their entire future to attend a Super Bowl and sit in the nosebleeds. But yes, my mother was 6 months pregnant with me when she and my dad traveled out to Pasadena, California, amongst a group of other friends as well, and took in that legendary Phil Simms performance, one of 2 Super Bowls the Giants won during that era. And so, it's funny, Jeremy, actually knowing we were going to have this conversation prompted my wife and I to go through a book that my mom put together recently. She gave I'm one of 3 children, each of us a book, and it was old family Christmas card letters that she had kept a copy of, digitized them, and we now have in chronological order, basically every family letter that my mom wrote. in which me and my siblings were pictured in said letter. And it was unique seeing how many times she referenced my sort of sports crazed childhood, including the fact that I was born just months after attending my first Super Bowl. So I actually beat my brother to the punch at a Super Bowl. My brother was not there. My brother, who's 2 years my senior, did not go to a Super Bowl prior to me. And I didn't even have a social security number at that point. I was still just months away from becoming, a human in the outside world. But that was the first.
Embryonic.
Embryonic. Yes. The first of, if my memory is correct, and I was going through doing some math on this, the first of 9 Super Bowls that I have had the honor to attend to this point in my life.
All right, Field. So we know your first Super Bowl is probably one you don't have very vivid memories of, if any whatsoever, since you were not yet born. What is your childhood Super Bowl experience, if there is one, that you do remember most vividly?
Well, I'll give you the first one. Let's start there, because in some ways it's the most vivid one because it was the first experience. But I will tell you the one that I think probably takes the cake. The first Super Bowl I went on Earth, was 1996 season. The Patriots played the Packers. Desmond Howard, of course, was Super Bowl MVP in that game. The Patriots lost 35-21. At this point, I was a passionate Patriots fan. The Patriots had
You're 9 years old.
9 years old. Yep.
You're 9 years old.
Yes.
That's a good age for a fan.
Totally. Yeah. I see, friends of mine who had children a little bit sooner than I did, and I'm starting to see them really they're right now, we're usually in bed by 7:45 in my household. I've got friends who allow their kids to stay up late to watch their beloved, when you and I are having this conversation, the NBA Finals is beginning in mere hours, and I have friends who are allowing their children to stay up late as a result of that. So 9's an age I look forward to. Patriots had this kind of unexpected run to the Super Bowl, which became kind of a theme for the Patriots over the next few years. And they met their match against the Packers. Desmond Howard returned the opening kickoff for a kickoff. I don't believe it was the opening, because that was Devin Hester. It was not, because Devin Hester is the only player to return the opening kickoff. But I was sitting in the end zone where Howard received the football and then took it 100 yards the other way. And Desmond and I have struck up a relationship as colleagues at ESPN, and we do the draft together every year. And I've yet to have the nerve. And Desmond is disarmingly kind, so I'm not sure that he probably would play along with this. But I haven't had the nerve to tell him, you kind of spoiled 1996 for me. It's supposed to be a big year, and instead you won Super Bowl MVP. But I think he's probably okay with that.
We had him on the show talking about it. I think we interviewed him just last week at length about his Super Bowl 31 MVP performance. Only special teamers, team player to win the MVP. And the thing that's most of it, if you go back and you watch the game, and that might be a painful experience for you, Field, but he is so fired up. He is so out of his mind, especially after he returns a punt in the first few minutes of the game, 34 yards, which was the Super Bowl record at that point. I said to him, why were you so amped up? I mean, it was like an Ohio State-Michigan game. He said that there had been some bulletin board fodder where the Patriots were saying how the special teams for the Packers were their weakness, including a teammate of his from Michigan ripped him, and he couldn't wait to get out on the field.
He got the last laugh.
He had to take some breathing exercises after the punt return to calm down, to get himself, he said, down from a 12 to an 8.
Wow.
But yes, we love Desmond.
We do. And but I would say the most prevailing memory for me from attending Super Bowls is when you fast forward into February, I believe 3rd of 2002, the Patriots, who had this unbelievable, I said that the earlier run in 96 was unexpected. This run was unbelievable to the Super Bowl. The second game,
Super Bowl 36.
Super Bowl 36, second game of the season. I was there at Foxborough Stadium. Drew Bledsoe gets knocked out late in the game by Mo Lewis. He's sort of jogging to the sideline. Drew didn't move very fast at any point, so he was maneuvering his way to the sideline, and Mo Lewis delivered a hit that ended up giving Drew some internal issues, and then Tom Brady, everybody knows. Yes, it was an incredibly scary situation. The Patriots go on to make the playoffs, of course. They win the Tuck Rule game against the Raiders.
I was supposed to be there for ESPN.
Yeah.
I drove up from New York. I was driving up from New York that morning, and the snow was so bad, this
Yeah.
is embarrassing, I turned around literally in Bristol.
Wow.
I realized there was no way. It had taken me 4 hours to get to Bristol from New York, which is usually, as you know, like an hour, 45-minute drive. Like, I'm never going to make it. So it ended up, I was supposed to be me and Sal, and ended up just being Sal, and I missed one of the great NFL games ever.
Yeah.
Still a regret.
Like 39-year-old me would have no interest in being inside of a stadium, which at the time was equipped with largely aluminum benches. Actually, you know what? Yeah, because that was the final season at longtime Foxborough Stadium, which the Patriots, and I'm sure there are people that are watching this that are aware of this, for much of the NFL's existence, were an also-ran, right? They were a completely, this is probably unkind, but a largely irrelevant franchise, right? I mean, no meaningful success. Yes, they had made the Super Bowl on a couple of occasions previously, but they had been waxed by the Bears.
Look, there are too many franchises, and I say this with all due respect to other guys, my friend Andre Tippett and all that. There are too many franchises that, 40 years into their existence, you would have said the all-time best player was a lineman. And that was clearly the case with John Hanna.
Yes, absolutely. So for the Patriots,
Tippett, I guess, Hanna, it's kind of close, right?
At the very least, Gino Cappelletti probably on the short list as well. But no matter who it was not the typical 40 years in best player, Walter Payton and the sort. So the Patriots, they of course win the Tuck Rule game, and then in the AFC Championship game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, when Drew Bledsoe takes over for Tom Brady, he has this throw to David Patton in the back of the end zone. Troy Brown
right
returns
off the bat,
amazing. It was like, wait, hold on now. That against these Pittsburgh Steelers, and Troy Brown,
nobody gave them a shot against the
zero.
Steelers.
Yeah, Troy Brown returns a punt for a touchdown, and then Antoine Harris, who was the 6th round pick out of University of Virginia, the Patriots took before they took Tom Brady in the 6th round. So they had 2 6th-round picks. The first one was Antoine Harris, who returned a block field goal attempt for a touchdown. And then, as we know, the Patriots advanced to play the Rams. They're 2 touchdown underdogs. They end up winning the game 20-17.
Biggest underdog since the Jets in Super Bowl III.
And they win this game. Some felt, it was one of the greatest. I don't think so. Everybody felt it was one of the greatest upsets in Super Bowl history. And during that game, the moment that I actually remember most, beyond obviously the kick by Adam Vinatieri, is the Rams were driving. And those that watch football now may not remember that this was how you used to be able to play defense, but there was a much more physical brand of football allowed. And the Patriots' specific strategy was, we need to make life difficult on Marshall Faulk on every play. The Rams were driving, and Kurt Warner threw a pass deep in the Patriots' red zone that was picked off by DeBucky Jones and returned 95 yards, which would have made the game at the time 23-3, pending the extra point to go up 24-3. I am screaming, and when you're 9, I guess not 9, I was now 15 years old, you refer to the team as we, and I am jumping amongst friends and family and saying, we're going to win the Super Bowl, we're going to win the Super Bowl, not realizing a flag was on the field as Willie McGinnis, one of the stalwarts of the Patriots' first dynasty, was flagged for, I can't remember if it was defensive pass interference or some sort of penalty because he jammed Marshall Faulk illegally by the ref's estimation. And then all of a sudden I thought to myself, I've jinxed it, because the Rams go on to score. Ricky Prohl has this miraculous fourth quarter, and all these years waiting for this moment, and it meant so much to me. And that Patriots team really made my life perspective shift a little bit. There are lessons learned.
By upsetting the Rams.
Yeah, I would say that.
How they overcame adversity. Right, and people don't remember, that, when Drew Bledsoe goes down, he is one of the faces of the NFL. They've just signed him to a $100 million contract or whatever for 10 years, Patriot for life. And Tom Brady comes in, who had started the season, or at least training camp, as the third stringer, right?
Yeah.
And nobody knew who this kid was. And then Bill Belichick has to make a decision when Bledsoe is cleared. Is he going back to Drew Bledsoe, the face of the franchise, the guy who saved the franchise, you could argue, from moving, et cetera, or the 6th-round draft pick? And whatever you think about what you're supposed to do, injuries, losing jobs, all that, it was a gutsy call.
It sure was. And it's easy now to say, look, of course you go to Tom Brady. But at that point, and not here to relitigate who's most responsible for the Patriots' success. The
That's the
early
next episode.
Patriots, yeah, we'll do that. I can't wait for that. The Patriots were a defense and a running the football and a special teams team at that juncture. But what the life lessons learned to me were more like, life is not about who's the most talented. Sometimes it's the most prepared, who is the most determined in specific moments, who's opportunistic. The Patriots kind of embodied all of these things. It was just a series of being in the right place at the right time. And whenever opportunity knocked, they've really seized it. It was maybe if Antoine Harris I actually think somebody else, I believe, initially recovered the blocked field goal and then
Right.
lateraled it back to Antoine Harris. If he is tackled down and they get the ball at midfield, maybe they don't extend that lead and maybe the Steelers find a way to come back, or any number of things that could have happened during any of those games. And you're saying to yourself, maybe the Patriots are just a plucky underdog and not a
Two
Super Bowl
miracle
champion.
wins.
Yes.
I mean, that's the way that Belichick himself described those 2 wins.
Without question.
As miracles.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the Tuck rule and colleagues of ours like Randy Scott will forever believe it was the wrong call. It's interesting, my perspective. I did not realize the gravity of what that call was being in the stadium, because when you're sitting there and you're watching the Jumbotron, which again, this is the old Foxborough Stadium, the Jumbotron's probably 1/50th of that magnificent screen they have now at the beautiful Gillette Stadium as we know it. On top of that, it's snowing. I mean, it's like snowing sideways. So your view is obscured, as it were. And you're looking there and you're like, yeah, he obviously fumbled. His arm was obviously going forward. Like, this is not even a consideration to be a fumble. It's clearly an incomplete pass. I had no idea. So for the rest of the game, which wasn't much longer, getting back home, and at that point, who knows? I don't even know if I watched NFL primetime app. I probably did, because I was obsessed with that show and still love watching Boom and Booger now do it on Sunday nights and then into Mondays as well. But I just really, like, everything about that team sort of resonated. As you're a 15-year-old, and I knew at that point I was not going to be a star athlete, but I did realize that I wanted to continue to play sports beyond the high school level. And there were some lessons that I think really resonated with me that I try to carry into my adult life these days.
Well, I mean, it was one of those inflection points, right? In the history of pro football. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got the greatest show on turf. They're 14-2. It looks like they're going to roll to their second Super Bowl win in 3 seasons. And then you've got these guys who at the beginning of the season, nobody had any belief in. And then it got lower because they lost their starting quarterback. And, Bill Belichick at that point, of course, was the conventional wisdom was great coordinator. Jury is out on him as a head coach and is
Absolutely.
about to come to a negative verdict.
Yep.
And he reverses the script.
He sure did. And he went on, and I will forever believe that he's the greatest head coach in the history of professional football. Packers fans are going to argue Lombardi, and I think there are probably other constituencies that have a different answer as well. But, Bill really turned the Patriots into the embodiment of what I think carried them for the next 20-ish years, which was every decision that they made throughout their walks of life were dedicated towards winning. And it was never about one individual player. They had players that achieved things individually. Tom Brady was a multi-time MVP and plenty of all pros and you name it. But they just felt like if they continued to chip away with this ethos of putting the team first, they'd have a chance to sustain some success. And so much about that team, I think it's harder to remember it now because we're basically 25 years removed from it. But so much of that team, without us realizing it, encapsulated what the next 20 years would look like. I mean, some of the guys that they signed that offseason, right? I mean, Mike Vrabel, who was a very talented player at Ohio State, goes to the Steelers, has kind of it's sort of a wondering first 4 years of his career. None of the Patriots players that were signed that offseason were to much acclaim. It was the likes of Mike Vrabel and Mike Compton and guys that just sort of did the job that was asked of them in an accelerator role compared to where they were. So that team will forever be special to me. And I would say that there was a game that season against the Rams, actually, in which the Patriots did not
In
win.
November, in late
Yep.
November, right?
And it was almost at that point, Jeremy, where you said to yourself, if ever there was such a thing as a moral victory in football, that was it. Because it instilled, I believe, some belief in the Patriots that they can compete with just about anybody. They weren't good enough to win on that night, but any given Sunday started to apply to that team for the rest of the season.
Very similar in a way to what happens 6 years later with the Giants and the Patriots, and the
Yeah.
roles are reversed. But, before we get to 42 and 46, my favorite, subjects, and some others, so you go off to college,
Yep.
you play football, you play lax at Wesleyan for the Cardinals.
Mostly from the bench, but yes.
Nevertheless, um, you get to know Jeffrey Mayer,
Yeah.
and then, you find yourself working for whom?
The Kansas City Chiefs, but there was a stop with the Patriots along the way, but we can talk about the Chiefs there, if that's the direction that you wanna go,
No,
because
Patriots, but,
okay, good, Patriots. So, working for the Patriots, and so, yeah, it's kind of it's hard to describe exactly what this was because it's not I called an internship, Jeremy, because it's probably the closest thing that's probably the closest way to describe it. It wasn't like I went to some local job fair and there was a Patriots opening, or if there was even a Patriots.com at this point, I applied on Patriots.com. The backstory was that I had an opportunity to go and be a ball boy for a Patriots rookie mini camp. And during that rookie mini camp, you strike up some friendships or I don't know, friendships, but you meet some people and you basically for me, it was just to let you guys know I'm around as needed. I'll
Mm.
clear my schedule for you going forward. So I had the
I mean, were there
opportunity.
guidance counselors at Wesleyan
Yeah,
who
yeah.
kinda,
They're
made
like,
calls that
so,
that kind of thing we could get
you're,
you a ball boy job
yeah,
with Bill?
your sociology class is leading you to the Patriots.
Right.
Your French literature
Yeah,
class was
yeah.
really priming you to connect with players more. But I had this incredibly unique opportunity to go and work with the Patriots. And truthfully, I don't know that my job was really to produce for them. My job really was to learn. I tell people it was my football Rosetta Stone. It was to learn how to one day be able to evaluate football players in a
Mm.
professional capacity. But I end up with the Patriots. First year I did whatever training camp was at that time, 4 or 5 weeks. And then it sort of grew over time to, all right, I'm going to do every summer training camp, which is the longest portion of this gig. I'm also going to go back to every home game for the Patriots. I went to a couple of road games each year, which, that's like pinch me level cool. And then the playoff games as well. So I was just always around. And some of the guys that were not only there, but were thriving at that time, we now know in a much different capacity. Obviously, Tom Brady, greatest of all time, lead broadcaster for Fox. Everything he touches turns to gold. Teddy Bruschi, one of our
Raiders
colleagues at
owner.
ESPN. Yes,
Yeah,
Raiders owner as well.
Raiders owner.
Teddy, Teddy and I, and Mike Vrabel, those guys used to bust my chops when I'm running around as like a 16, 17-year-old.
This is before college.
This is even before college when it
This is even
started.
before college. Okay,
And
I
these
thought
guys
this
are
was
laughing at
during
me.
college.
Well, it continued into
Both.
college. And
Okay.
Jeremy, they're like, they're busting my chops because obviously NFL players. But Teddy from the West Coast went to University of Arizona. Mike from a talent-rich portion of Ohio and played at Ohio State. And I'm talking to them, I'm like, yeah, like I'm, trying to get recruited. They're sitting there running around like, who's recruiting this guy, right? They weren't as familiar with many Division III programs in New England as somebody like me was,
Right.
but I'm like, these are like my hopes and dreams, right? Damian Woody was there, another ESPN colleague of ours, Rodney Harrison, guys that at the time I'm like, these are like my idols. And staying in touch with all of them for all these years has been a real joy and thrill for me. But yeah, I am sort of around and at times quite noticeable from the sidelines as well.
Yeah, in fact, we have some evidence. As you are aware, this is
Yeah.
not an ambush of any kind, although I wouldn't be, against that necessarily, but Here we go. There we go.
Oh,
There is young
God.
Mr. Yates.
Yeah.
There he is. This
I'm gonna do
is
this. There we go.
2008. Super Bowl 42 is about to end with another enormous upset. The Giants preventing your beloved Patriots from going 19-0. If we had, what is it, the bubble thing over that, what would it be for you?
Oh, man. The closest, no, not even the closest. It was the only time in my life that I can recall being not just like speechless and numb for something so prolonged. And I'm excluding, not to be, morose, but much more real life events,
Right,
loss of loved ones and
right,
things of that
right.
nature.
We're
But
yeah.
but
Aside
within,
from that, this is,
yeah,
as a sports fan, as somebody who's dedicated so much of his energies and passions and ambitions to this sport and this team, it means something.
it does. And I had zero to do with the success of that team, but I still felt a part of that team. And I think that history would remember that team as the greatest of all time, even if they were the second ever to go undefeated and win the Super Bowl. Of course, the 72 Dolphins, still the only member of said club. I think people would remember that team much different. I think they would say that's the greatest team we've ever seen because of the fashion in which they won throughout the
If they'd
year.
won it.
If they'd
Yeah.
won it,
No, I
yes.
think you're right. I think you're right. Although, we could spend a lot of time making the case for those 72 Dolphins. The one fact, right, that kind of is most often cited in their favor, right? Only team ever to lead the league in scoring defense, yards gained, and fewest yards allowed.
Yeah,
That's
no
pretty good.
question. I mean, they're an
Right.
amazing team. It's definitely six in one hand, half dozen in the other. But that being said, that season was so special, and of course, as media coverage of the NFL was much different in 2007 than it was in 1972. But this meant so much to me, and on top of just the historical context of it, Boston versus New York. I mean, it was just sort of the perfect storm of things to work against you. And again, I was not
All it took was the greatest play in the history of football going back to Rutgers-Princeton in 1869 to make it happen.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I'm not kidding. I mean, like, that play in its entirety might be the most memorable play that's ever happened.
On the very short list at the very least. And yeah, it just, you felt such a deeply personal connection to the team. Again, you can go back and whoever, Matt Light or Teddy Bruschi, Mike Vrabel, Rodney Harrison, any of those guys that were on that team, they're not going to sit there and say that I was the one that was, making the defensive calls or anything. But I was around so much that I felt a part of that team,
Sure.
whether I was or not. And, I would also say that emotional maturity at 20 years old is a lot different than where I think it's at now at 39 years old. So I didn't, like the stakes of life at that point to me felt very much like, hey, this team is maybe the apex of anything I've been a part of, even if a mere grain of sand on the beach that was the 2007 Patriots. Now it's, hey, I come home every night to soon to be 3 children and, things like that give you a whole different sort of view of what's at stake. But at the time, it just felt like such a potential life-altering moment. I just didn't realize how it was going to alter my life.
And I'm sure you've bumped into him. He's around Bristol every once in a while. We brought him in, David Tyree or Plaxico Burress, Eli.
Yep.
What's that like for you?
I have done an event with Eli on a couple of occasions and, of course, consumed a lot of his content. He is hilarious.
He's so funny.
It's really hard to have anything other than respect, reverence for them, right?
Okay. I thought you were going to say contempt. So,
well, a little bit of that as well.
Right.
Belichick talked about this though, right? And that like that game, 2007, the Giants handled business, right? Like they beat the Patriots. It wasn't like,
and beat him up.
it was not, hey, the Patriots, they had 7 fumbles and the Giants blocked a punt and they faked another punt and all this. No, the Patriots just got beat by the team that was better on that day. And that's the absolute
That
beauty
opening
of this.
drive, I have such
It was
vivid
like 8 minutes,
memories.
right?
Longer. It was almost 10. Longest
Unbelievable.
ever. It only ends in a field goal. and I was rushing home. I'd been in Phoenix for a few days covering, and around the preps for the game, but then I
Yeah.
had to get home because I was flying to Germany the next day.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so I'm literally like taking a cab from JFK to Midtown where I lived. And the whole first quarter is over in like 20
I
minutes.
know.
It
The
was like
NFL is like,
it was the shortest first quarter. I'm like, I'm going to miss the whole game. I'm not going to be able to see any of it.
we have so many commercials we have to get to. So literally every stoppage of play going forward will be a commercial. So
Right.
yeah. And
It's
I will say this,
crazy.
it started to, like, that was enough to make you concerned right
Mm,
out of the gates, because it was just basically, how do you take the highest flying offense in maybe ever, but in
ever.
15 to 20 years at minimum, and neutralize it? The answer is not let them have the football. It's just how it goes. And the Patriots just couldn't ever get the mojo rolling from there.
So I got to ask you then, Phil, to kind of bring this thing full circle, in the way that we try to when we have these discussions and we discuss these narratives. Like, if the lesson from 36 was that you don't need you don't need all the talent, you don't need all of the reverence, all the expectations to achieve. What was the lesson after 42?
I got to find other activities on Sundays because football's not doing it for me. um, y-
That,
y-
that's an honest answer, right?
truthfully, the answer was sort of the same lesson learned in 36.
Mm.
And probably that,
But
like,
just reversed, just reversed.
there are those that really believe that, like, the old saying, never too high, never too low, right? It probably landed somewhere closer to there, because if you overdo it on the highs, then the lows are going to come back and get you, and you're going to have a similar feeling, and you're going to wonder, how could this possibly happen to me? The outlets at that time for me, the outlets, they're different than they are now, right? I was in college, so I got to go back and escape into that world for a little bit. But as a lacrosse player, as you can imagine, like, half my team is from Long Island, and half my friends, especially in my inner circle of the guys that I
Syracuse,
consider,
Baltimore, Long
yep,
Island, the whole
yeah,
team, right?
I've
Yeah.
got I've got 5 closest friends from college. I'm one of 3 from Massachusetts. The 3 other are from Long Island. 2 of them are Giants fans, and one of them is a Jets fan. And yeah, I mean,
So
if
you
you
get
don't,
your shots
we
on one
get
of
we
them.
get our shots all these years later. Well, all these years later, I'm still getting the shots from the Giants fans
Right,
too.
right, right.
So, um, it was, yeah, it was a tough emotional sort of letdown, and there's nowhere to, like, really turn, because it's not like you go to somebody within the organization, or even, my family was deeply invested in that team as well as fans. Hey, it's okay. Like, everybody is simultaneously feeling the sulk, and as a result of that sulk, you are sort of just hoping that time can continue to move along, so that, I don't know, pitchers and catchers can report, or, summertime rolls around and at least the weather is good in New England, we can go to the beach or something.
So, so you're interning, you're doing stuff, you're there with
Yeah.
Josh and Bill in the final
Oh
moments.
god, yeah.
And then, you turn this into a career,
Yeah.
a terrific career, which is still gaining momentum all these years later, almost 2 decades later. Can you tell us about that journey, what that
Yeah.
was like from player to an intern into the scouting ranks, and now obviously one of the most respected voices on the subject of our national obsession?
I appreciate that very much,
It's all
and
true.
well, it's an honor to be talking with you about this journey, which, after New England, after I graduated from college, as somebody who was born and raised in Boston, went to school in Connecticut, it was like kind of a conversation with some of the people that, including the likes of Bill Belichick and others who I'd grown to have a relationship with, is that, like, from my longevity in this business, because I was expecting at that point to be in the world of football as a coach or a scout for a long time, it might be healthy to go see what it's like when you're not at the top of the mountain, right? When
Mm,
you're winning consistently, the sort of moves the Patriots were making year in, year out were much different than the sort of moves that are being made when you are maybe this year the
the
Arizona
Jets.
Cardinals or the
Oh,
Jets. Yeah,
right.
right. It's just very different, right?
Right.
Um, so I went to Kansas City. They had just had the third pick in the draft. I didn't know whether I was gonna be living in Missouri or Kansas. I actually thought I was going to be living in Kansas, which Kansas City, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri are 2 different things, but they are right next to each other in terms of
Wesleyan's not really
proximity.
known for its geography department.
Not known for much except for producing NFL head coaches. But I got a job as what we call a scouting assistant or an in-house scout. Um, Scott Pioli was the general manager, and I would say that my range of duties extended from both real scouting things, like I was assigned assigned the AFC and NFC West to evaluate upcoming free agents. So we were constantly updating reports on players so that if in the AFC West the Broncos cut somebody, all right, do we have a write up on linebacker Jeremy Schaap, what he does well, and whether we would acquire that player off of
Very
waivers.
thin volume. Yeah.
And also some scouting of college players, but then a lot of also, like when we were bringing players in for workouts, somebody has to go pick the players up from the airport. Somebody has to take those players from the airport to the doctor's office so they can get their blood work and their physical taken.
It's like being a college team manager, all that stuff. Yeah.
I was sort of we used to call me and call others in this role a slappy. But what was really cool about this, I didn't realize it at the time, none of us did, but when I got hired, and this was the summer of 2009, amongst the people that was also hired at that time were, and I shared an office right next to Mike Borgonzi, who is now the Tennessee Titans general manager, Ryan Poles, who's now the Chicago Bears general manager. We were sharing an office that's about the size of my current office in my home. We used to call it the fish tank. Not long after we got hired, it was maybe 6 months later that we hired somebody from the league office, who Scott Pioli, our GM, said, "I'm just telling you, this guy is brilliant in ways that you football guys aren't." His name was Brant Tillis, unbelievably smart salary cap manager. He's now kind of number 2 or 1A to Dan Morgan's 1 as Carolina Panthers front office. He is, I believe it's VP of football administration. Very fancy title. He's doing huge things for the Panthers. And then down the hall, there was you would maybe at the college ranks call it a GA, but we called it it's a quality control coach in the NFL. A young guy, guy who played at Mount Union College, had some experience coaching in the college ranks, named Nick Sirianni, who was the offensive quality control
Whatever
coach.
happened to that guy?
Yep. So it was really cool. And again, we had no idea at the time.
Was my old friend Jim Nagy there at that time?
Jim Nagy got hired
now the general
right
manager
away.
of the Sooners.
That's right. Yep. Oklahoma Sooners. And he was one of our national scouts with the Chiefs. And so these guys who are, and Jim had been in the NFL for a little while. I actually knew Jim from my time with the Patriots, but the rest of us, this is sort of our first
He's got like
stop.
7 rings or something, right?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Seahawks, Patriots.
It's crazy. So we had, first timers, and we didn't realize that people were going to go on to various roles. Another guy who got hired right after us named Ryan Nutt, who I believe next in line from that Chiefs front office to become a GM one day as well. Just an unbelievably good evaluator. But I had I would describe it now as a cup of coffee. I've been out of the college world for 17 years almost. So, sort of 2.5-ish years working in the NFL, seeing a lot, but realizing that specific field wasn't going to work for me. And Jeremy, I wish I could tell you I had like this light switch moment. I said, I got it. I'm going to go work for ESPN. Didn't work out that way. Truthfully, I wasn't certain that I wanted to do something that was simultaneously gratifying, but also chemically imbalanced, right? I come out of college. I go work in Kansas City, Missouri. I did not have a day off from the time that I got to Kansas City in late July, maybe it was mid-July, until Memorial Day weekend in May. So whatever that is, 7 or 8 months. There might have been, Sunday afternoons off or something like that. But I'm telling you, and I'm not telling you that every single day was digging ditches. But
no,
hey, even if it's Saturday morning,
balance is not the priority.
Hey, you got to go. We need you on Saturday morning to go pick this guy up at 6 o'clock at the airport. Now you might be off the clock by 10:30 once you drop him off after the physical, but still, it just so yeah. I wonder whether I was cut out for that. In 2012, the Patriots, things kind of worked their way back to New England here, had 2 first-round picks. Those became Chandler Jones and Dante Hightower, pillars of players that went on to help them win more Super Bowls. But the off the charts. Mike Reese, as you know, Patriots reporter for ESPN, has been covering the Patriots since he graduated from UMass in 1999. One of my closest friends in the
Still
world.
looks so young.
I know, he's aging incredibly gracefully.
Wow.
The Tom Brady of reporters. And I mean that in many ways. The way he's aging and his aptitude and
If you asked me, I always said 35. I didn't think he was like 48.
Yep.
Yeah.
He said, hey, I had cold emailed him, and he had reached. It was during the season, and he said to me, hey, a little busy right now during the season. Do me a favor and write me a note after the season is over, and we'll reconnect. Mind you, this response came less, and I know this. I remember referencing this in speeches less than 11 minutes after I responded to him. And the season comes to an end.
You want to get something done, ask a busy person to do it.
That's right. And at the end of the season, I thought to myself, I don't know, 3 weeks, a month, let things kind of cool off. Like 3 days after the season, Mike Reese reaches back out to me and says, hey, just wanted to follow up. Haven't sort of lost track of where we were. And he invited me to go down and help him with coverage during the 2012 NFL Draft. And that was the start of my ESPN journey, unofficially, because for the purposes of our Disney accolades, I have my Mickey plaque up on my wall here.
What's that? Wait, how many years is that one?
That one's 10. And
That's
I will
10.
be, yep. So I am at 13 now at ESPN, but 14 years ago with my first event. So there was kind of a, 1 year where I was part-time.
Well, Field, it has been a pleasure watching your progression in the business. Everything you're doing is so great. You do it with such integrity and grace. Good luck. Congratulations. Number 3 on the way. And Super Bowl number 10 coming up. It will be ESPN's first. One final thought. Well, why are you so excited about the ESPN Super Bowl 61?
First of all, and we are, as you know, we are blowing this out, right?
Just
one of my nearest
any other Sunday.
Yeah, one of my nearest and dearest friends now in life, but at ESPN, is Laura Rutledge and her great family. Laura, of course, for my money, the greatest host on television, and her husband Josh is a great friend of mine, and their kids go to school with my kids, and we have tons of fun with them. But I remember it's like Super Bowl Sunday, and it was me and my family and Josh and their kids hanging out. And Laura was not around because she had to be in not where the game was in Santa Clara, but in Los Angeles, right? She had spent the week in Santa Clara and flew down to L.A. for the handoff. Yeah. So ESPN is letting no stone left unturned. And, there is, I would say that if I had to pick a team to make the Super Bowl, it would be one of Seattle or Los Angeles from the NFC. But there feels like a ton of star power around the NFL right now that either comes in with like an established baseline of expecting to play for the Super Bowl, or teams that have something to prove. Like it is an inflection point year potentially for Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. They've already accomplished Hall of Fame level of things, but
those other guys, you talk about windows and opportunities, and
this might be
time
for
waits
some
for
of
no
them.
man.
Yeah, and for Mahomes and the Chiefs, it's can they overtake the Patriots as the greatest 2-decade dynasty in league history? That's what's still available for them. No one's going to ever debate he's a Hall of Famer if he retires tomorrow. But there's just so many compelling storylines this upcoming year, and I cannot wait to see how it all shakes out.
Jets-Giants, Super Bowl 61.
It's still in play.
Field, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jeremy.
See you down the road.
All righty.
In beautiful Bristol.